Hey guys, welcome back to another Driving Empire video, and today we're going to be doing a tier list based on Driving Empire races and how difficult they are. So I do want to get it clear that most of this list is probably going to be my opinion, and please just be respectful of it. And I do also want to say, just because I found a race to be harder than another race doesn't mean it's literally harder. It's just, to me, I found it harder. So I do really want to get that clear before we actually get into the proper tier list. And how I'm going to be doing things is basically the top row is going to be the most difficult. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but I didn't want to get that pretty straightforward. So yeah, I guess without further ado, let's hop right into it. Right guys, so to start off our tier list with number 1, we have the City Quarter Mile, which is easily going to make it into the easy tier. Now the reason why it's easy at the very bottom and not by any means difficult is because all you have to do is drive in a straight line for like less than 10 seconds. I mean, the only thing you really have to worry about is perfecting nitro, but there are no obstructions, there is no turning. All you have to do is accelerate forward. It's very simple. So because of that, it easily makes easy tier. Like, I don't even take any more than 3 attempts every time I make a video for the City Quarter Mile. Now for the drag race, I'm just gonna say that this is probably easy too. It's going to be a bit more difficult than the quarter mile, but I don't think it really deserves the moderate tier, because like all it is just a longer city quarter mile. But I mean, you do have to focus still on perfecting that nitro. I mean, I already have my own like strategy for that, but once you like get everything done, once you get like an established strategy and you just get used to it, it's pretty easy, and you can get this over it in like 1 to 3 runs. So that's definitely an easy race. Now for the highway race, I'm going to say that this is in the moderately difficult tier, and the reason it's not really hard is because for most cars I don't really have an issue with it, because like let's say I'm reviewing a circuit car, like normally I just easily get it done. But now when we're talking about actual professional highway cars, like I'm just going to give the Bolide as an example, you have to really focus on a lot. So first of all, you have to time that nitro right if you want to get a good time. Like if you're slow with the nitro, you can lose a second or two, which is kind of vital, because if you want to get the perfect time, losing a second is not very good. So with that, you also have to focus on keeping the car at the right speed. Like some cars, or most cars actually, have this issue with Driving Empire physics, where if they go too fast, they'll start violently shaking and they'll go out of control. So you have to really restrict the speed to where it can go as quick as possible without really shaking out and going violent or whatever. So you have to focus on that, and then you got to focus on gear shifts and then keeping the car in the appropriate lane and stuff like that. It's like a really closed off space. So let's say your car decides to go violent and it's going too fast and decides to start shaking. If it hits the wall, what happens is like first you'll hit one wall, then you'll hit the other wall, then you flip over, and then that's the end of your run right there. Your opponent would easily overtake you. So you really have to focus on like keeping your car in a straight line. It is just hard, but I mean, it's not necessarily extremely difficult though, because there are some cars that do not have issues with stability, and even then, like once you get the hang of doing the highway race, it'll just be pretty easy. You can get that done in probably less than 10 tries for most cars. Now for the circuit race, I'm going to put that right next to the highway race, and I think it's really almost in the same level of difficulty, to me at least. And the reason to why I would say it's higher than moderate and easy is because, like, first of all, I mean, it's the circuit race. It is the most lengthy race in Driving Empire. You really have to be consistent. You have to make sure that you're always at the same quality of driving. Like you can't really negotiate driving for one corner. Like if you don't do one corner clean enough, then it's really gonna cost you the whole time. Like you won't really get a good hot lap run. So you do have to focus on being very consistent, and you also do have to watch out for the bumps, because in some of the curbs, if you go over them, they will cause your car to flip. So those are really the 2 major issues of the circuit race. But now I'm going to talk about why it's like not much harder than the moderately difficult tier. Now first of all, I mean, the circuit race is probably one of the widest races in Driving Empire. Like it has so much width, so you can really take up all that space. You can do whatever you want with that space that you have, and if you make a mistake, you have lots of margin for error. Like you can just really fix that mistake because you have lots of space. So like it's not restricted. There's no walls that are like closing you in and keeping you in a specific lane. So it's very nice, it's very open, it's very flowy. All you have to really focus on is making sure that you get the braking right, you get the turns right, and you're probably going to be good to go. Now for the around the city race, this might surprise many, but this is going to be on the very hard tier, and this is definitely margins ahead of the circuit race in difficulty to me. And the main reason to that, or actually there are many reasons to why it's so high on this list. So first of all, in the around the city race, you have to focus on the straights, especially you have to focus on keeping to a small lane, and like within that lane you have like two different like road spaces, and then there are just curbs on either sides. So you have to really focus on keeping that car in that small gap. And then along with that, some cars like they get really stiff when they're going fast when you're accelerating. So you have to really think about a lot. First of all, just getting the car through the straight. And there are some straights where you have to actually like turn and everything, which can be kind of inconvenient. And then we got the obstacles. So if you want to do the around the city race really quickly and you want to get a good run, you have to make sure that you take advantage of the shortcuts that the race has. And one of the shortcuts is in that part where you have like one of those long curves where you like turn around and you start going back to the finish line. Like that specific corner, you have to cut through the trees in order to get a good run, and you have to make sure that you don't hit one tree during that time. If you hit one tree, it could be pretty fatal. Like sometimes if you're lucky, you'll just bump right off it. But then what happens is once you bump right off it, you hit another tree, and then your car gets stuck within the tree, or either you hit the tree and your car flips over and then it dies, and that's going to be the end of your run. Or let's say you don't take let's say you get by all the trees, but you think you're done, and then all of a sudden you run over a curb, and then like that you flip over. Like there's so many obstacles in the around the city race. You really have to be really careful. You have to think a lot. Like you have to make sure that your car is safe the whole time. Like it's just a lot to think about. Like the circuit race is a breeze compared to the around the city race. Like I used the Rimac, and for my Rimac review, it took me more than 70 runs to get the around the city race done, and it only took me one run to get the circuit race done. So I mean, if that doesn't say something, I mean, the around the city race is just very hard. Now, the mountain dash is probably going to go for the hard tier. The reason I'd say it's harder than the circuit race is because, I mean, it's really like the circuit race. There's lots of space where you can drive in and everything. You can make errors for the most part, but the problem with the mountain dash is there are three really dangerous corners. There are three really hard corners that really just cause this race to be hard. Like if it didn't have those three corners, it would definitely be in the moderate tier and probably even easy tier, because like everything else is wide. But for the first corner, like when you're leaving the bridge and entering the mountain itself, like you have to make this turn and you have to go on the inside of the tree in order to perfect it. But the problem is you have to really get that angle correct so that you can hit the checkpoint, you don't go too wide. And the problem is if you go too narrow though, you have to worry about hitting the tree, which is the first problem. That just it takes a while to get that right. And then right after that you have the middle corner. So like when you're going down, you have to take this shortcut area, and what you have to do, instead of taking the shortcut itself, you go earlier to like the terrain itself. And sometimes if you don't get that right, you have to make sure that well, first of all, you have to make sure that you brake hard enough, and then you drift into it so you can maximize that speed. But if you don't brake well enough, you're gonna go way too wide, and that's gonna be the end of your run. And if you go too quickly, your car is gonna flip over, and you have to really focus on that. And then there's the final corner where you're like going down the straight and about to finish the final straight to the finish line. But when you're on that straight, you're gonna reach the end, and you have to brake very hard so you can like maximize the amount of time you're at full speed, and you have to get all of that right. But the problem with that corner is when you're like braking, lots of cars tend to slip due to, I guess, slippery brakes, and it will cause your car to lose control. And basically, if you brake too late, your car, and if you don't use the drift, your car is gonna go way too wide, and it's gonna go out of the race completely, and that will just knock you out. So if you can perfect those corners consistently, you have to do all three of them well, then I mean the mountain dash is not really a hard race. But I mean, to me personally, I find it a lot more harder than the circuit race. It's not necessarily as hard as the around the city race. So the around the city race, there's so many obstacles. The mountain dash, it doesn't really have obstacles, it just has really hard corners that you have to perfect. So yeah. Anyways guys, thanks for watching this video. Please make sure you drop a like if you enjoyed, and comment down below if you agree with my opinions, if you disagreed, what your tier list would be, and stuff like that. Make sure you join the Discord server so you can meet all the G's from the WTJC gaming community. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.